welcome back to the channel. So Cerydra's release has only sparked a lot of discussion about, whether she's good or not, if she's like too niche, and kind of the problems with her kit. And I think that she has kind of shown the problem with niche characters in the game right now, because I think there's like both a good and a bad side to being niche. The bad is that if a character only works with one or two other characters, most people aren't going to pull for them. So they're going to have a lot less, sales. And even on the teams that they are really good on, the characters already work fine without them, so a lot of people won't really feel like they need them. Like, with Cerydra, Finon is already good with Bronya and Sunday, and while Cerydra is definitely a boost to that team, if you're already clearing content fine without her, do you really need her, She is really good for Hyper Carry and Axa, and does stuff that make that team a lot better, since a lot of his damage is mainly from his skill, and he can apply his skill a lot more. But he's already been out for a while, so if you have him, you probably already have a good team for him. So again, it's do you really need... And to be fair, I think it's good to have certain supports not be absolutely required for a DPS to be good. That is kind of one problem, but I have with certain characters like Aglaya or a lot of energy characters, where if you don't have Sunday, they just kind of feel way worse to play, and Team Uni is just nowhere close to how good Sunday is. But the problem with making these kind of dedicated supports for characters that are already out is that it's kind of a lose-lose. If the DPS is bad without them, then you release the character that bad intentionally, and people are going to be mad about that, rightfully so. And if the DPS is good without them, then the average player just isn't going to feel like they need them. On top of that, if we get another character in the future that synergizes with that support, like a skill-focused DPS for Cerydra, a lot of people might skip that character, because most people didn't get Cerydra on her first run because they don't really feel like they need her, because she only works with two characters. Now, on the other side of that, I do think it is sometimes fine to have characters that don't feel like must-pulls. I'm not saying to make the new characters bad, because that is way worse than them being really strong. But every new character feeling like a must-pull can kind of lead to, at least for the casual player, which is kind of what I try to look at things through most of the time, since that is the majority of the player base, it can feel like you don't have enough time to get enough pulls, since every new character has been a 5-star, and also the lack of events don't really help with this either. So it can kind of feel like the game is forcing you to spend money when you don't really need to. It can kind of just get exhausting after a while if every new character is this super huge thing, I think it's fine for characters like Cerydra to be niche, since we already have a lot of general supports in the game, like Sunday and Robin, those kind of characters. If every character was niche, I could see it being more of a problem, but I think that just having a couple of characters being more on the specific side is fine. You could say that Dot is also niche, since if you aren't going for that sort of archetype, then you're not going to pull for someone like Hycealans or Kafka. And that's fine, you don't need to pull for every character to beat the content. On top of that, I think being a bit more niche can lead to a bit more of interesting kit design, because for how good a lot of supports are, their gameplay is kind of boring. All you really do for someone like Triby is just use her skill, and then you just basic attack until her skill is about to run out, and then you just use it again, and then you just ult whenever you have it. There's not really much thought that goes into her gameplay. Cerydra, I feel, is a bit more interesting to use, since, with trying to get the max amount of charges, while also being able to utilize her buffs effectively to copy the skill to get the maximum amount of damage. She does, at least to me, feel like the most interesting support to use, and I think she could get better later on as well. But then that also kind of raises the other problem, being why do they need to be niche in the first place? Because having a character work with a lot of things is just more fun, since there's a lot more opportunities for synergies, and it doesn't feel like you're locked into only playing the one way, which can get kind of boring after a while. And it doesn't even make sense from a monetary sense, since if you're making a character niche, the less people are going to pull for them, so you're going to make less money. I doubt the devs intentionally make characters niche. I think it's more so them trying to be more experimental with how they design characters, with My Day having the whole auto battle thing. They've kind of been more experimental with the 3.S characters as a whole. And I think it's mainly just because of how simple Star Rail is. You kind of have to, if you want to make each character actually feel different, because at this point you have almost any role you could want for a character already filled. But I think that kind of leads to sometimes the experiments just not really working that well. Why does Cerydra have personal damage talents? It just doesn't really help her do what she wants to do at all. At least with someone like Triby, it just kind of makes sense. It's all of her stuff scales off of HP, and you mainly want to, just build her mainly for HP. But even then, like, her damage is only like 60% of her attack, which is like barely anything. It's like, I feel like they should just focused it solely into the buff aspect of her, and then she would have been like way better. At the end of the day, I think there's a good and a bad way to do niche characters. The good way is that they are clearly designed for a purpose. Like, I bring up Dot again, Kafka is clearly designed for Dot teams, and I think that is fine. Even like Fugue, to an extent, since she's mainly meant for Break, even though it does kind of feel like you're kind of forced to get her if you want to play Break, because of, remembrance of MC being so good on a lot of teams, and you can only one form. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. I think the bad is when their kit is just not as good to push them to be used with a specific character. That is my main problem with, like, someone like a Goliath. She should have, like, some sort of energy passive in her kit. Like, if she had her E1 as part of her base kit, she would feel so much better to play, but without it, she really needs Sunday to be good. And Cerydra kind of has that similar problem with her kit. Like, while I might like her kit and find it interesting, it feels like she has like two conflicting parts of her kit, of her, wanting to like copy skills and have this sort of like build up to like doing a big burst of damage, but also leaning into like her own personal damage, which just doesn't really go together. So half of her kit just doesn't really feel helpful at all. And especially on like Finon teams, because Finon clears a lot of the characters out, you're just not even going to get the personal damage half the time anyway. And like, we already have Trippy, who does the like damage harmony character thing way better. I mean, this isn't even necessarily a problem with like just Cerydra. There is other characters like that as well. Like, I think Jiaoqiu also comes to mind. Like, I feel like he could have been a bigger buff to Dot. At least Sealans came out, but they kind of just pushed him way more towards being just a Acheron buff. And while he is really good with Acheron, that's like the only real team he's good in. So it's like, why would you make a character that's only good with one other character? It just doesn't really make any sense, But I don't know. Maybe in the future we will get more characters that like make her better. But then it's like, why release that character now? If in the future if you already have other characters that are gonna make them better, why not release that character first and then release her after? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.